The S&P 500 is a stock market index made by the firm Standard & Poor's. Over the course of this video, I will discuss what exactly the S&P 500 is, how its selection works, and why it's so important. The S&P 500 is a market index. A market index is simply a group of investments. This specific group of investments was selected by the analysts and economists at the financial services firm Standard & Poor's. Market indexes can have different types of investments in them, but the S&P 500 is a market index that consists of 500 US stocks. These 500 stocks are the most watched stocks in the US market. The S&P 500 is just a selection of 500 US stocks. I can make my own market index. For example, here at Soni Bros, we love orange juice. So what I can do is pick, say, 20 stocks and call this selection of stocks the OJ20. That's it. That's all there is to a market index. The group of stocks in the S&P 500 are selected by the S&P Index Committee, so the analysts and economists at Standard & Poor's. They aim to put the 500 most widely followed US companies in the index. This selection changes over time because the analysts and economists at Standard & Poor's want leading companies in the index. So if a company becomes undesirable for some reason, it will be replaced by a company that the index committee approves of. However, not many companies in the index are replaced often. An example of a replacement situation would be if a company goes bankrupt. Then the S&P will probably replace it with a better company. The S&P 500 is supposed to represent the US stock market as a whole. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, also known as the DJIA, used to be the most followed index for representing US stocks. However, it only has 30 companies. The S&P has 500 stocks, and since there are much more companies in the index, it has more exposure to the market and therefore is a more accurate representation of US stocks. If you look at mutual fund managers, famous investors, or any investment records, their performance is always compared to the S&P 500. These 500 companies are chosen to represent the US stock market, and that's why mutual fund portfolios like to compare their results to this index. Believe it or not, 75% of mutual funds fail to beat the S&P 500. Many investors, including myself, compare their performance to the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is a market index that represents US stocks. This selection consists of 500 stocks, and some of these companies are replaced by more desirable companies over time. This market index is important because almost all American investment results are compared to the S&P 500's results.